Welcome to Belfort podcast. It was many years ago I was invited to do a YouTube channel. I was invited to do a podcast, and I was hesitated because I thought that was take things away of my career. The time of me was the grind was one of the most important thing, and anything that took away from time with training, preparation, time with my family, I was avoiding. So back in the days, people on YouTube, they do funny stuff. They do things that don't matter. And I was thinking like, this is silly. That's not what I want. And eventually this thing catch up, and here we are. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody wants to be a YouTube star. And when I was watching and looking the amount of content is out there, and a lot of life coaches, masters. And mastery is something that I acquire through hard work. Some people acquire mastery just by teaching, just by becoming a professor. That was not me. My school, my university called life, and my university came with many scars, a lots of struggles. And as this road continued to grow, and I was looking myself, and I was literally looking to my second journey. And when I say second journey, the first journey is the journey of yourself. When I mean self is discovering yourself. And a lot of people live their whole life to coming to a situation that they don't know who they are. The lack of identity today is the biggest disease. Is people don't know their self. And that's going to be a subject we're going to be talking in the podcast as well. So I was discovering myself as an athlete, and mixed martial arts, it's one of the challenge sport in the whole entire world. And the reason why, because you're competing with another man on the other side. And this another man, he's being prepared to rip your head apart. And he's a samurai just like yourself. So it's combat. We don't have a net. We don't have a judge. We cannot play fighting. It's not like a playing ball or let's try one more time. That is not. That is not next day. That is not next, let's go for the next game. No. Every fight is life and death situation. And that's how I was taught. That was how I was brought into the sport. And in the first episode, we're going to be talking about, the beginning. And the beginning is something that is, in the beginning, the world was void. That's when we read the story. And the beginning, the world was void and was dark. And everything starts with what you say. The words are so powerful. The words. I remember in the beginning, I was just a little child, but I had so much dreams. I have so much willingness inside of me. I remember as I was 4 years old, and I decided to become a fireman. And I remember I used to wear the hat. I pretend I had the car. And I was like, if you have kids, you see it when they're becoming the persona, they're living their dream, and it's so real for them. And they're in the living room pretending to be a fireman, or they pretended to be a cop. They pretended to be a girl pretended to be a mom, or taking care of the baby. That's how I was raised. We are always feeding what we want to become. And I remember seeing my sister playing with dolls, and the mother effect of a little child, taking care of the baby, changing the diapers. I was in my room, in a war zone. It was a war. You go back to my room, I create wars. I create like scenarios where I'm fighting. Always you have the villain, the good guy. Of course, I never had the intention to be the villain. I always want to become the good guy. So don't judge me for that. I don't like villains, and because villains, they always comes to to bring something negative. They come to steal, to rob, to destruction. And I mean, unfortunately, we live in a life today that villain is becoming hero. And if you are in that phase of your life, becoming a villain, trying to become a hero, you're in the wrong place. And maybe you should find another podcast. This podcast is to discover the hero that lives inside of you, the hero that is maybe just like the giant that's been sleeping for many years. And that was me. I was a little child. I was diagnosed with, deficit attention, with so many things. I was stutter, nobody believed in me. And I was just a little child, but my dad and my mom believed in me. They spoke words of encouragement, when I come home crying, they always be there for me. They always supported me, and they always supported me in the fact that I was going to be somebody, and my mom, especially, she taught me the importance of dreaming big. Dreaming big means not like a dream when you're sleeping. It's literally when you're awake, you close your eyes and you start dreaming with who you want to become. And that person changed, especially when you're a kid. One day I want to become a cop. I remember I dressed myself. I remember I want to become a dancer like a Michael Jackson. I used to dress myself like Michael Jackson. It was funny because he's trying to become white. I was trying to become black. I was painting my, getting things and trying to make my skin dark because I want to become like him and he want to become like me. And that's called the identity effect. And that's maybe is you living on that process. You want to become somebody that you don't have control over. So I have to accept the things I cannot change. For example, the color of my eye. I can never have green eyes and blue eyes or whatever. So my hair was one color. I want another color. So it's always that effect of identity. And I think having kids, you understand that if your daughter has a hair is a straight hair, she wants a curly hair. And if she's have a curly hair, she wants a straight hair. So it's that effect that and don't get me wrong, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just saying that we all struggle with that. But I had to MMA taught me that focus on what you can control. That was the whole subject of, if I can say one thing alone, and if you can stick with that and just get this and just go for your life. Focus on what you can control. And that's the only thing we're going to be talking in my podcast. That's my ethos, because that's what I understand after spending millions of dollars in training and paying trainers and spending money in many different things. And I come to understand that simple, it's always win. Make it simple. We call the word KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what we are. We are stupid. And the fact that we struggle with that thing called identity self. So when you understand yourself. So let's go back to the beginning. A little child, becoming a fireman, policeman, everything is possible. Hunter, our Navy SEAL. I did it all. And I always was fighting the bad guy. And I was introduced in the sport in an early age. I was very successful in every sport because I feel like school, I was a brilliant mind, but school was not prepared for my kind of approach of student. I was a thinker, and now I going back, looking the life of all these amazing thinkers like Einstein, for example. He was considered stupid, His IQ was not considered intelligent. And the reason why, because the education system is not ready to develop the emotion and that kind of called the entrepreneur, the entrepreneurs, the people that literally changing the market as the market goes on, and I think that's the athletes, including the genius, So I believe I had a genius in me, but I was considered, in math, I say, why I need to learn all that? And I was asking these questions, and the teachers was like, "Oh, you got to do it. You're gonna get a D. You're gonna get." So they want to make sure they punish me, and that was my growing up, and I was punished, and I was feeling stupid. And everybody gets A's, but I could not get A. But sport, I got all A's, and because it was my effort. It was all my effort that was doing school. I just don't want to be there. I remember not want to be in class because my teacher she wants just to make sure I fell. And I could feel that, and my mom and my dad was kind of struggle because they have their jobs, they have their things. And so sport was my thing and was my way out. So I became, Brazilian champion in BMX. I became, Brazilian champion in soccer, so everything I excel, and the people are like amazing. Hey, bring your son here. We need your son. And that was it. And then I would start playing tennis, and I go into the tours, and I travel. And I remember tennis is an expensive sport. So my parents we did come from a rich family. We are middle class, hard working class. And so everything my dad and my mom, they provide me was, they have to divide in 30 times to pay a racket, and trips, was hard. I remember my dad working so hard just to pay all these trips. And there I was, being successful in tennis, and my dad has an inspiration, man. That kid's gonna become the next, Andre Agassi, and he's gonna be able to be set. And if you see every parent of an athlete, a successful athlete, they push the boundaries. They do things that can be disturbing, and I understand because they are discovering the proper way to the grind, to the process of developing not just the athlete, the champion, but the guy who comes from nothing. So when you come from nothing, like Serena Williams, they have to beat poverty. It's a lot of struggles. So you only have, I call it the only plan. I remember Ray Lewis saying, "I only have one plan, Vitor, plan A." Different routes. I didn't have plan B, plan C. So do I. I never had a plan B, plan C. And everybody called me a failure because, and I remember, man, if I cannot be a champion, and thinking about MMA in 1995, we are like basically criminals. If you were a surfer in the 90s, you are considered a podhead, like a hip type of guy. But eventually, surfer, a fighter, became a sport. And today, I remember MMA as of yesterday. We're gonna travel on my journey, and that's what we're here for. I witnessed, and I was one of the guys who made that sport legit, worldwide. Was worldwide, and that sport was born in my country, in Brazil, with the Gracie family. My master, Carson Gracie, the guy who discovered me, the guy who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, the guy who literally embraced me, that believed in a 16-year-old kid, that convinced him that we need to come to America to conquer the land of the opportunities. I had to convince my mom and my dad to sign a document to let me travel with my master. That basically was a child, Carson Gracie. Who knows Carson knows how his heart was like a child. So he taught me so much. But one thing he taught me is to believe in yourself. So there I was, a little kid coming from all different sports, succeeding all that. And then when I choose fighting was something that my parents, couldn't understand. How you want to become that sport that exists, It's a criminals. Basically, you want to become a criminal. What you want? Where you found this aggressive? And I believe, I was aggressive child because I was growing up. My dad and my mom was divorced. They used to fight a lot. Oh my God. It was a war zone. My house was a war zone. And my way out, and they love us. They were very kind to us. And they did what they knew was best. So I feel like I have to discover myself in that journey, and with all the support that I have from my parents, like I said, I look at them in the eye and say, Mom and Dad, you guys did the best that you could. And when we look back, today, and we always say is the difference between repentance and regret. I teach my mom to never live in regret. I teach my father to never live in regret and repentance. And repentance means, changing of direction. So if they can go back, they will do everything different, because that's good, because it brings a relief in my spirit, in myself. So I really enjoy going back and asking my children, forgive Dad. I think I was wrong. And that brings the aspect that you can move forward. So the beginning of this journey, it's start with one plan. The plan is like, I have to make it. I have to make this my way out. I have to go and earn my stuff and go and I want a car. I remember I want to have a family. I want to have a wife. I want to be recognized. I want to walk in the street and signing autographs. I want to be able to inspire the next generation. But I didn't have any map like most of these athletes in all the sports and basketball and tennis and they have this map. They have just this way, and I was making a way. They only exist UFC. UFC was banned from pay-per-view. Was like, oh my God, we're gonna make it. And boxing was trying to stop us, the growth of MMA, and was like we are considering, you can have porn in the pay-per-view, but you cannot have MMA in pay-per-view. That was crazy. I remember you can buy a pornography, but we are banned completely from pay-per-view. And I was 16, 17, and we're moving all the way from Brazil, arriving in LA with $1,000 in that my dad and my mom, they find a way to get that money from sponsors, from people, and I got that money and I moved to America. Guess what's happened? First week, I spent it all buying shoes and things, and so there I was with no money and just living, one private class after private class, and just living the life of literally, week by week, day by day. But I had a dream. My dream was I'm going to become a champion. I'm going to be independent. I'm going to be able to have my car. And I was living in a gym for a year. And as the days goes by and all these things started flowing, and I remember like it was yesterday, Carson Gracie came to me and said, Victor, I cannot take it anymore. I cannot take it. I cannot take it anymore. I think it's time for us to go back to Brazil. I said, I'm not going to go back. So I remember it was like yesterday. We're living in LA. I used to do security, private security for Mickey Hooks. I could only work for him for 1 week because it was too much. His lifestyle was not according to what I want to become a champion. And so there I was, Carson Gracie said, we got to go back. We got to go back. We're not going to make it this time. We got to go back. And I said, no, we're going to make it. And I remember the Gracie family was totally separated because Carson he had a problem with his his family members because he wants to prove that his jiu-jitsu was, if you're not understanding this, but he wants to prove a point that his jiu-jitsu was better than the Gracie, the other part, because he was the guy who representing the Vale Tudo, was the one who protect the integrity and how good jiu-jitsu was back in the days. He literally defends against all the students that rebelling against themselves. So he was the guy who beat all the bad guys, not bad guys, but the opponents. They want to prevail. And he became the best fighter of the Gracie family ever in the Vale Tudo, not in the sport, but in the MMA segment. So he had an amazing team, and he chose me to become his prodigy. And it was a lot of jealousy back in the times because I was just a kid, and all these male adults, they want to get the opportunity, and they only had one event. They won their opportunity in front of me, but I said, you know what? It's an ownership. It's like if you earn, doesn't matter your age, you go get it. And everybody doubt me. All this, even these guys are my friends now, but they remember, they doubt me because they thought because they are in the 20s and they are better than a 16-year-old kid, and 17, hit 17. And I said, you know what? It's time. And I could not fight with 17 years old, this event they had. And Carson put one of the fighters because my dad didn't sign for me to fight in another event that was not UFC. It was another event similar to UFC because everybody wants to be in UFC, but they didn't have all this UFC. They are like on the UFC 1, 2, 3. That was like on the UFC 5, 6. So I need to have a fight to be able to be invited to the UFC. So I turned 18 years old. And I said, now I can fight on my own. So they had the owner of 24 Fitness, Mark Mustrov, great friend. So I used to train on 24 Fitness, and they are doing an event in Hawaii called the Super Bowl. So that was my ticket. That was my ticket to becoming the guy. But also, if I lose that fight, that was done. Imagine you are just a child, and you don't even know what you signed for. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my journey as a little kid, want to become a fireman. A little kid want to become a cop. So that little kid changes so many hats. And my mom and my dad was always feeding me and helping me, and using sport as a tool to be able to defeat my insecurity, just all the things that I was suffering on the side, on the school, with the teachers, because the teachers are bullies. I'm telling you, the teachers are bullies. One day told me, you a stutter, you don't know how to say. I say, you don't know how to read, you a stutter. Imagine a teacher saying that to you. I went through a lot. But it's funny because all these things that's coming to my mind today. And I said, if you didn't make me, you can't break me. If you didn't make me, you can't break me. I always had in my mind, you're not my mom. You cannot define me if I'm wrong or right. I define, myself with the hard work. That's what sport taught me. If you put the work, and I remember I had these parents was cheering on and paying their way for their kids, that I go and just beat the crap out of these kids. The feeling was so good to look in the stands and see all these rich parents, paying their kids a lot of money for having all that. But they didn't have the effort. They didn't have the it factor. And that's what it is. And so sport taught me that lesson, that if you put the hard work in the dark, what I mean is in the dark is being when no one's seen, when the lights are shining, when time to say go, that's when everything shines. that's when gold is put into test. So that's what's made me understand that the beginning of the journey of the rising of the Phenom, that was the nickname that they gave me. So that is the part of the journey that everything started with the beginning. In the beginning everything was dark, but a lot of people speak words of encouragement, like my mom, my dad, my coaches, Carson, and a lot of the friends that I had growing up in the stuff area that I lived. They always encouraged me, Victor, you have it, man. Go for it. Go. You should not just try, just do it. Just go ahead and do it. So we have a lot of segments there, how I learned boxing, how I became this MMA fighter so successful, because I discovered boxing at an early age where I used to live, not in the jiu-jitsu aspect, but it was funny because back in the days, you cannot do all the martial arts. You have to become a jiu-jitsu fighter. And I was looking, I was a very visionary. So I knew that for me to be successful in MMA, I had to learn the skills with my hands, be fast. And that was my friends. I give props to my friends, from Favelão, the area I used to live in Leblon. They said, Victor, if you want to become an MMA champion, you have to do boxing. And everybody on Jiu-Jitsu Academy of Carson Gracie, they was against boxing. You cannot do weights. You cannot do nothing. You have only to do Jiu-Jitsu. The Jiu-Jitsu mentality was very small. Everything was like very internal. And I always like to explore the world, because I believe wisdom is acquired when you leave your comfort zone, when you live the things that you already know to seek something that you don't know. So the more I know that I don't know. So I still have that mentality today. And that was the beginning. So next chapter of this podcast, we're going to be talking about the purpose, the dream, how that dream becomes a reality. So I want to thank you for your time with me here at my podcast, and I'm looking forward to be able to discover and to inspire you to become your better self. And it's all start with yourself. If you improve yourself, you can improve everything around yourself. So have a blessed day. God bless you. Go live life at the fullest.